friends. In Planet Earth Dating, it's Wednesday, June 10th, 2020. In both the Lynn Life and the Jamie Body Mind, the authorized souls remain only child souls from the deeper, denser dimensions, and all other souls from all other dimensions, as long as the souls are already living by the many Search for Truth rules already given to the Search for Truth community by wiser minds above all of us. And whether or not the souls live by those rules is their option and not the option of the host lives.
That's
because
right.
Here on planet Earth, we think 100% of the lives and their originally assigned souls have disconnected, and that's based on, somebody says, what do you base that on? The soul who's answering says based on all the experimentation, and they kind of like unroll, looks like a scroll.
Yeah, it does, a
it's
really big scroll.
Very long, very big
scroll.
All the data, whoosh, and it might have tests by various angels and higher souls, and testing where the previous resident soul has gone,
Yeah,
and
that's
where
right.
the life is, and there's just a disconnect, and the astral currents are now so profound and dense that lives cannot hang on to their souls, and souls cannot hang on to their lives. It's like trying to fight against a riptide.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's the reality. Now, that doesn't mean that souls can't continually go up to the surface, get a gulp of air, and come back down again. That can be done. But the point that somebody is trying to make is to the host lives themselves, and to not get snippy, to really remember that host lives do not currently have legal standing under divine law, because when legal standing was assigned, it was assigned to the souls. And that's the reality of it. So what help may come from above is by the grace of the divine.
That's right.
And to be grateful for what comes and not snippy for what doesn't come. And to remember that we are still held accountable for our soul plans. And when we die, as is inevitable, there is going to be an accounting. And right now, somebody's asking what we know, and somebody else is saying, we know that right now, planet Earth, life on planet Earth is being destroyed at humanity's hands using tools sent in by the spirit world.
That's right.
That when the spirit world arrived, there were maybe less than 80,000 humans. And the spirit world did not break down the door to come in. They were invited in because Pan, guardian of the nature realms, saw that the nature realms was good and stuck in lying, cheating, stealing, bullying, and Darwin calls it survival of the fittest.
That's
but
right.
Pan said, no, the biggest bullies are prevailing.
That's right.
And that's wrong, and we can do better. And he felt powerless to change the situation for the better. He tried everything he could think of, and then pockets kind of turned inside out, empty pockets. I got nothing else, and still this bullying culture is prevailing. So, all right, I'll sign this deal with like the devil, only it was with the divine.
That's right.
And maybe in retrospect, from his perspective, it was a deal with the devil, because then divinity came in and they picked humanity, and they had their reasons, but they picked a species to kind of lift out of the muck and try to get to being beyond bullying.
That's right.
And all they did was arm humanity, and now humanity is acting like the biggest bully in the world, literally in the world, and is destroying all other life on Earth, and pretending that humanity has the right to do that, and that God is not displeased.
Yeah, that's right.
Some people who like to argue say, I believe in a loving God, and we do too, but we think that divinity loves all life, not just humanity.
That's true.
For God so loved the world. So now we find ourselves at a crossroads, testing whether this culture or any other culture so conceived can long endure. And they're making a reference to the Gettysburg Address.
Exactly.
But we believe that they're speaking about humanity's societies and the prevailing societies, there are over 7,000 languages of earthling humans.
That's true.
On this planet, and more than half of them are severely endangered. And when you hear the definition of endangered, we think that you would agree that that is indeed an endangered language, and the definition is 3 or fewer speakers.
That's right.
That's pretty endangered, and we would say that it's an endangered language if there's maybe 300 or fewer speakers.
That's
and
right.
then all of a sudden most of the languages on Earth are endangered, and what's left is maybe the top couple hundred,
That's
maybe
right.
prevailing languages, and that's showing us which societies are the biggest bullies.
That's right.
Well, unfortunately, we see that the gentler societies are being extirpated, and the bullying societies are prevailing. And somebody else is talking. There might be it's a public speaking event.
That's true.
It's not like a debate.
No.
Upstairs in the higher dimensions, these are angels and godly presences who are responsible for a very large collective, and Earth isn't even on the list of languages, just as many of these highly endangered earthly languages are not even on the list of languages.
That's right.
Nowadays you can find Urdu on the list, but it's only
right.
because our country is attacking Afghanistan, and Urdu is spoken in Afghanistan.
That's right.
But there are many, many other languages spoken by just the last remaining pockets of that culture. And what we see instead is that the biggest bullies are prevailing. So from the perspective of the nature realms, somebody's saying nothing has really improved with the spirit world's attendance. They're calling it attendance.
I hear you.
All that has changed is that the rate of bullying has been increased exponentially. So that's a fail.
Yeah, that's right.
For whom is the message? And why do you ask? And they're talking about a pattern that exists in many pockets of United States culture, where people think it's cool to defraud the system.
That's right.
And so they want to be paid under the table. They want to be paid off the books.
That's right.
And they feel very like Wyatt Earpy about it, like I'm a cool dude. And it's fascinating because as a CPA, we know that they're hurting themselves deeply, because
That's
when
right.
they turn 62 or 65 or whatever age they think they're going to start collecting Social Security at, and they go to the Social Security office, Social Security office is going to say, I never heard of you before. And
Exactly.
So, skedaddle. Shoo. And that's because you have to have at least 40 quarters. Your Social Security is based on your 40 quarters of highest earnings.
That's right.
Reported earnings you paid taxes on. So that means 10 years. You need to go work for 10 years on the record, on the books, being paid on the books in order to collect Social Security. So don't delay. Start now. And we know that something really sad happens to these. It's often men who work physical jobs.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
They are feeling very cool during their law-breaking years, and then when they go to apply at age 62 or whatever, they have a choice to make, because usually by then their bodies are not in great shape. Having
that's true.
worked physical jobs, usually their bodies have paid a price. But they can usually do something. And really, as a CPA, if they were ever to ask this CPA for advice, what she would say is, get a job on the books and just the best job you can and work for 10 years, and then you have your 10 years, and then you can retire, and then you can collect Social Security, and it's better than nothing.
That's right.
And the question is not comparison to ideal, because ideally you would not have been defrauding the government for 40 years. Ideally you would have been reporting your earnings for the last 40 years, and you would at this point just pick your 40 best quarters, or the computer would pick it for you.
That's right.
And you would be able to retire, but right now you have to build your 40 best quarters. So start where you are, use what you have, do what you can, don't get hung up on what you can't do what you can do. Every day is a new day, choice in every moment. Make a new choice, go on the books, get paid, pay your taxes, and then you'll be able to collect Social Security.
That's right.
But usually what happens is these old lawbreakers just keep breaking the law a little bit longer, kicking the can down the road, and then they're 72 and they still don't have 40 quarters on the books, and then they're 82, and now work is really, really hard for them, and they feel helpless and hopeless, and usually they turn to even more law breaking at that point,
right.
And that's really unfortunate. What is the message? Why do you ask, what is this about? What is this about? What now to stop the destruction for planet Earth? What now to stop the destruction of planet Earth in a fair and just way? What now? How may we be of service? We know we have no legal standing, but we're still offering ourselves in service to higher vibration presences who are working to stop the destruction in a fair and just way. How may we be of service to stop the destruction of planet Earth in a fair and just way? And they're pointing to the dreamers that we had here last night, and the dreamers were angrily defending that they were good people, and they were doing what they had to do. And when we vibrationally assessed, were the dreamers' actions stopping the destruction or increasing the destruction? They were definitely increasing, contributing to the destruction. We think
that's right.
Kind of like by supporting the status quo is how it felt.
Yeah, that's right.
And the status quo is destruction, and supporting the status quo is therefore supporting destruction. And so the dreamers were supporting destruction, and they got very grumpy when that was pointed out to them.
That's right.
They did not think that we should be pointing it out to them. And it kind of has that flavor of these old, and it's not just men, but it's oftentimes men who've been working off the record. And there's some women also who've been working off the record, but usually the pink collar ghetto is working at a hotel, cleaning bathrooms, or working in a big corporate environment, doing something.
Right.
So it's usually men who are doing the physical labor off the books.
That's right.
So it's often men who are cheating themselves. That what they're cheating is their future self, their old man self, and that's kind of mean to be cheating their old man self. And it's kind of like such a small, tight definition of self that we don't even consider our future self to be me. They're just living completely, fully selfishly. And often these people are also having children, and they're not thinking about how devastating it's going to be in 20 or 30 years. Personally, we think if you go out 10 years, it's going to be bad.
Exactly.
We don't think we have to go right on this planet. But let's just even say 20 or 30 years.
Sure.
Let's say when the adult in question considers that they themselves will be dead.
Yeah.
So here we would say 30 years,
30 years
is safe. You know, hopefully 25 years is safe. Hopefully 20 years, because really we like to contribute and we like to work, and we don't see the point of hanging on after we can no longer contribute. We
using resources.
Yeah, using resources. Then we're part of the problem and not part of the solution, and we don't see the point of that.
No thanks.
No thanks. But let's just say 25 more years, okay? We think we can be productive for 20 more years. We're pretty sure of that.
Yeah, I do.
Were things in the larger scale to stay stable, and we don't think that's going to happen.
No, I really don't.
We think in our productive lifetimes we're going to see trouble with a big T, capital T, big trouble. And therefore, why would we be bringing children into the world? And granted, it wasn't as clear 30 years ago as it is now. 30 years ago, while climate change was beginning to be understood, the big risk was thought to be the flooding.
That's right.
And the flooding comes long after the disruptions of the food chain.
Food sources.
And the deterioration of social services.
That's
and
right.
The loss of safety and easily available food, which we think those are big deals.
Oh, yeah.
So it's cruel to bring people into the world to suffer like that. We think it's cruel.
Yeah, I do.
We don't think it's right. So there's just no thought about the children that are being brought into the world, and there's no thought about even the future adult self.
That's
of
right.
the future would-be retiree. There's only just the current moment, and that's really sad and strange. And for whom is the message? What is this about? Who is thinking only about themselves in the current moment? And friends, every moment life begins again, and when we die, as is inevitable, we're going to be held accountable for what we did or didn't do to stop the destruction of planet Earth at humanity's hands. We're all going to be held accountable for it, every single one of us. The angels have said, everybody who is still breathing has that soul plan to stop the destruction in a fair and just way. And there's lots of flavors of how to go about it, but that's the assignment. And you can change how you go about it, but the assignment never goes away. And when we die, as is inevitable, that's going to be what they ask us about. And it's going to feel better to say, I realized it right at the end, and I did do these things, than to say, nothing is not a problem. And you know what? God's not going to be fooled by your arguments. So to start now, and don't worry about what we can't do. We cannot change what we did and didn't do last year or last decade. But we can change what we do and don't do today and tomorrow and the next day. And to really consider that now is the time to set aside any other considerations. Nothing else matters more. And go for it like your hair is on fire or like your planet's on fire, because it is.